The 40-Day Mirror, a journey through Jewish character. I'm Rabbi David Kadosh. Welcome to Day 8. Yesterday we spoke about Histavkut, the art of being genuinely content with your portion and stepping off the treadmill of endless wanting. Today we talk about something that can look deceptively similar from the outside, but is something else entirely on the inside. Today we talk about Tircha, or Atzlut, laziness, aversion to the effort, the quiet resistance that lives in all of us and whispers, later, tomorrow, not now. I want to begin with an honest admission. This is the midah that almost nobody talks about in a musar context because it is unglamorous. Anger is dramatic. Arrogance is interesting. Even worry has a certain intensity to it. But laziness, it's almost embarrassingly mundane. And yet the consequence of tircha are anything but mundane. The Mesilat Yesharim, which we quoted yesterday, devotes one of its longest chapters to what he calls zerizut, alacrity, and its opposite, atzlut, sloth. The Ramchal opens that chapter with a line that should stop every one of us in its tracks. He says, the damage of laziness is not always invisible immediately, but it accumulates silently, like water that slowly carves through a stone. You don't notice tircha destroying things in real time. You notice it years later when you look back and realize how much was left undone. The relationship you kept meaning to invest in, the learning you always planned to start, the apology you intended to make, the project that lived in your head for a decade and never made it out. Tircha is the midah of almost, of nearly, of one day. The Torah gives us a portrait of laziness that is almost uncomfortably recognizable. Mishle, the book of Proverbs, is filled with Shlomo HaMelech's observation about the atzel, the lazy person. And there are written with a sharpness that feels almost funny. The lazy person says, there is a lion in the street. I will be killed if I go outside. In other words, the lazy person is not sitting there saying, I am lazy. He is generating excuses and reasons. Elaborate, creative, entirely convincing reasons why now is not the right time. Why the conditions aren't quite right. Why it would be unwise to begin today. And Shlomo HaMelech is telling us, Tircha doesn't present itself as laziness, it presents itself as wisdom, as caution, as prudence. And that's what makes it so hard to catch. Chazal in Avot Rabbi Natan teach that one of the things a person will be asked to give account of on the day of judgment is every legitimate pleasure they denied themselves without reason. But I would suggest this is not a formal halacha, just a spiritual intuition that we will also be asked about every genuine effort we deferred without reason, every call to growth that we put on hold indefinitely. Because time is the one resource that does not replenish. You can recover from financial loss, you can repair broken relationships, you can regain health. But the hour that passed while you were waiting for the right moment to begin, that hour doesn't come back. There's a story told of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who we mentioned earlier in this series, that when he was an old man and his strength was visibly fading, his students noticed that he pushed himself harder than ever. They asked him, Rebbe, why the urgency? You've accomplished more than any of us could dream of. He looked at them and said, that's precisely why. I can see the end of my time more clearly now than I ever could before. And I understand something I wish I had understood earlier. Every moment is an invitation. And an uninvited invitation, left unanswered, eventually stops being extended. Every moment is an invitation. Tircha is the habit of leaving invitations unopened. Now, and this is important, there's a difference between tircha and rest. The Torah commands rest. Shabbat is not laziness. It's sacred stillness. And it's one of the highest forms of avodah. Rest that restores is not tircha. Rest that avoids is. The question to ask yourself is simple. Am I resting or am I hiding? Resting refuels you for what comes next. Hiding postpones what you already know needs to happen. So here's today's question for the mirror. What is one thing I have been meaning to do in my relationships, my spiritual life, my responsibilities, that I keep deferring with very good reasons? Name it. Just naming it is already a small act of zerizut and alacrity, because you've stopped pretending the line is in the street is real. And then, today, not tomorrow, take one step toward it. Not the whole journey, just the first step. Because Ramchal teaches something beautiful at the end of the chapter of zerizut. He says that the very act of beginning, of taking that first reluctant step, generates its own momentum. The effort creates the energy. You do not wait until you feel like doing it. You do it, and then you feel like continuing. The door opens from the inside, but you have to reach for the handle. This has been Day 8 of the 40-Day Mirror, a journey through Jewish character. Until tomorrow.